Hey everybody, Kowalski here, checking out our hashtag Star Trek Discovery Discussions videos. Today, of course, we're going to be sharing some exciting theories in regards to Terra Firma Part 2. So, for those of you who are saying to yourselves, the keen-eyed fan of the Kowalski YouTube channel, Kowalski, how can you share theories in regards to Terra Firma Part 2, but you haven't done a review for Terra Firma Part 1? How could you do that? Well, my response to all of you would be, shut the f***. No, seriously. I am going to, kind of from now on into the future, anytime we get a two-part episode, I'm going to wait to do a full review for both parts together. It just seems fair. Obviously, these are much more kind of in-depth kind of seasons where these long story arcs are kind of stretched across the entirety of the series, so it's a bit difficult to review these episodes as it is, but these two-part episodes, you know, really are super, super connected, and I don't want to really rate a two-parter episode without seeing both parts, because in this case, there are a lot of plot threads just kind of left out in the open, and we don't really have an answer for really anything right now, and really just what's going on with the rest of the season, let alone the second part of a two-part episode. So I don't think it's fair to give a good rating based off of both parts. I know some of you may disagree with that idea. That's fine. You can have your opinion there, but I think it's only right to kind of just wait to see if the whole story really makes sense in the two-part configuration, and if it really all pays off, you know, worthy of this, you know, depending on how long this one is, potentially, you know, our 50-minute long episode, really. So we'll see what happens there, but that's why I haven't done a review yet on Terra Firma Part 1. So, talking about theories for Terra Firma Part 2. So, obviously, this is going to include some spoilers for the first part, so if you haven't seen that already, I don't even know why you're watching this, because you should be watching and staying up to date with Star Trek Discovery. But obviously, Georgiou is inside the mirror universe. She went through that doorway with this mysterious person on the planet, and she's arrived back in the mirror universe, and she appears to be attempting to rewrite the past in an effort to not kill Michael Burnham, mirror Michael Burnham, which she had already done when we saw the episodes from Season 1 in the mirror universe, and essentially tried to put a stopgap and a kibosh on the Lorca uprising that was also very heavily featured in the Season 1 mirror universe episodes. So she's trying to redo some things there, and we're kind of just left at a bit of a cliffhanger as to what's going to go on there. So my theories are, number one, I think that the individual that sent Georgiou through the doorway, a lot of people are saying it's a Q. I don't think it's a Q. Doesn't have a lot of Q vibes. He is a little snarky, but he's not quite Q snarky, and he didn't have that signature zap-in thing that they do. I'm thinking that this is a physical manifestation of the Guardian of Forever. Now, I've talked about this in a little bit of theories, you know, from, you know, prior to Terra Firma, that they were going to use the Guardian instead to try to send Georgiou back in time to try to save her life. I would have not thought that they would have sent her back in time to the mirror universe, because that's kind of opens up some serious implications, but we'll get to that. But I think this guy is the Guardian of Forever. How that's working, I have zero idea. On the newspaper that he was holding, there was a ton of little Star Trek Easter eggs, including a lot of references to the Guardian of Forever's first episode inside of the TOS show's appearance. And, of course, in the original script for that episode, the Guardian was a physical person, kind of entity, I guess, but it was a man. It wasn't just a big archway screaming at you, you know. It was a person, which they then later changed, which, you know, we can kind of get into if that was a good idea or not at a different discussion. But that was kind of maybe like a homage to that original thing, and maybe now the Guardian is a physical person. I don't know. I feel like the Guardian's capabilities are unknown to us, really. There's not a lot of prime, you know, alpha canon lore attached to the Guardian. So to say that it can't be a person, or to project a different kind of image of itself, or to hide itself in plain sight, we don't know that. We really don't know for sure if that's the case, so that may or may not be a thing. That's what I'm thinking this being is. It's just the Guardian in general, or maybe it's like a caretaker of the Guardian that maybe we just didn't see in the first time we saw the Guardian. Maybe they just changed the way it looks based off of who's there, and it kind of just looked like the doorway now. I don't know. That's just my theory, but that kind of connects back to what it is that Georgiou is doing. I don't think that Georgiou is actually literally back in time. What I'm theorizing right now is that this is a bit of a Ghost of Christmas Past, Ghost of Christmas Futures type situation, a bit of a what-if type scenario. I don't think that they're going to send her back in time, because every action, including already taken, which is to save Michael, will directly impact the overall lore and canon of this Discovery. Even if you don't even get into Discovery impacting lore for the larger Star Trek universe, just the show itself saving Michael Burnham has already heavily impacted, and killing Paul Stamets has heavily changed the events of what occurred in the first season of Discovery, which would then, of course, immediately have ramifications for where we are right now in the future. And I just think that they have spent too much time, energy, effort, money, all this stuff on building out this future construct for the Discovery to play inside of, for them to undo it with this two-parter episode. I really think this is just a Ghost of Futures Past type situation where it's just a what if or a showcase of what could have been or what was and things of that nature. I don't think it's anything. I think it's just all in her head. My theory is that she's actually just laying out on the ice as these things are kind of happening to her in her mind, and I feel like we're just going to get a scene at the beginning of the next episode where Michael's just going to be staring at an unconscious Georgiou and getting snarky comments from whatever that being is, whether it's the Guardian or whatever. I don't think it's actually physically her going back in time and changing the past, but it is possible. I just don't see it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for all of this effort that they've put into getting it to the future, the Discovery to the future, to then have them undo that, essentially, potentially catastrophically undo all the events of the first 3 seasons. Now, that would be a lot of fun, I think, just to kind of see how things would play out. I love those alternate reality type situations of a what if type question of what if they did this and all these other things would have happened. I like that. Those are fun stories to tell, but I don't think they're going to restructure the entirety of this show based off of this two-parter. I don't think that's going to happen. So 2 other theories I want to associate with this, which is if this is a Ghost of Future Past situation, that means Georgiou's not literally back in time, but she does need to get back in time, provided that the Guardian can't heal her. But we already know that with the Section 31 show, which is supposedly still in production, it's still on the books over at CBS, it's still attached to the press releases that they send out and stuff like that, and the press kits and everything, so it's still happening. So we know that she needs to get back in time because the show's supposed to be taking place with Shazad Latif, who, played, in the first 2 seasons of Discovery as Ash Tyler. So supposedly it's supposed to be back in that time frame. And we do know that at the time when they jump forward in future, that the Mirror Universe and the Prime Universe were very close together. This is coming from Cronenberg's character. Now they're super far apart. So sending her back in time when they were much closer together should resolve her issues. So what I'm thinking is after the Ghost of Futures Past kind of event takes place, they are going to send her back, and this is going to be essentially a backdoor pilot for Section 31. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if we see her go through the actual literal Guardian, and then she arrives, and they have a little cameo by Ash Tyler, or maybe even like, Pike or Spock or something like that, where she appears on the Enterprise or something like that, and she's like, hey, it's me again, and they're like, what the hell? So I think that may even be a possibility. Maybe at the end of this is kind of like a fun, like little teaser for Strange New Worlds and the Section 31 show. They could kind of stick all that stuff together and see how that would play out. That would be kind of fun and kind of just be this backdoor pilot into the Section 31 show. But I think we've arrived at that moment now where she is going to be departing. Georgiou's character is going to be departing the Discovery. And the reason I feel that way is, again, she's literally dying. But she had what I would call a definitive goodbye to Saru and Tilly on board the Discovery. I don't think they would have filmed that sequence if they were going to bring her back on board. I feel like whatever happens, she's not getting back on board the Discovery. So we'll see, but that's what I feel like is happening right there with the Guardian and what this episode may end at. Now, another thing that obviously was very heavily talked about in the first part of Terra Firma, and I'm probably going to continue that conversation inside of the second part, which is Lorca. Everybody was talking about Lorca. Everyone's talking about Lorca as this big character, very important. Lorca. Jason Isaacs has expressed an enormous interest in returning to Star Trek Discovery, or just Star Trek in general, not necessarily to Discovery. So I think it's possible that we may see Jason Isaacs return as Lorca, which would be awesome. I would like to throw out a theory that if we do see him, it won't be Mirror Lorca. It'll actually be the Prime Universe Lorca, who has now swapped places with Mirror Lorca. And that's one of the reasons why the Lorca rebellion inside of the Mirror Universe failed, is because halfway through the rebellion, he swapped places with the Mirror Universe or the Prime Universe version. So that would be a lot of fun. And maybe Georgiou can link up with Prime Lorca and maybe try to get him back to, his timeline, but then that kind of negates my Ghost of Christmas Past theory that she's literally back in time. I don't know, but I do think we're going to see Jason Isaacs. I think it's very likely that we're going to see Jason Isaacs. They talking about him so much, and he's expressed such an interest in returning to Star Trek that I think, maybe COVID would have potentially caused a problem with getting him on set, so maybe they weren't able to make it work. But how often they're referencing him in this episode, and they're probably going to continue to talk about him in part 2, it would make sense that he would appear. And my final theory, which has to do with the burn, Obviously, I was way off with my theories about what was inside of that giant nebula thing that appears to just be a Kelpian science vessel that is destroyed. That's apparently been there for like 100 and something years or whatever it is. And it's just sending out this distress call on a loop. That was definitely not what I thought. I thought for sure it was going to be the Discovery from the Calypso short trek. Way off there. I have no idea what's going on with that. And honestly, it feels like the burn on every episode is continuously being sidetracked, to the point where I feel like we're not going to get a solid resolution to the burn crisis in this season. They're already filming season 4. They knew that they had that locked in when they wrapped this season up, despite what people would say on the internet. They knew that they had this thing locked up for a 4th season. So it is possible that they're going to bring this thing all the way through and have it be a through line through seasons 3 and into 4. The fact that we haven't been focusing that much on it, I feel like at the end of this season, we're going to have an emotional climax with our characters as opposed to like a big battle confrontation or a massive resolution to what it was that caused the burn. And that does tie into the fact that we spent an enormous amount of time developing all of our characters so much more in the season, which I love, by the way. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying that they're gearing us towards something that I feel like may not be a giant space battle / resolution of the burn. It feels like we're going to get kind of an emotional climax, kind of similar to that of like Empire Strikes Back. That didn't have like a climax in the traditional sense. It was this emotional moment that kind of occurred at the end of Empire Strikes Back, which they may be trying to do with Discovery. We'll see, but yeah, I really don't know what to make of the burn, and I'm theorizing now that we're not actually going to get an answer this season. That's what I'm thinking. Anyways, guys and gals, that wraps up my theory video for today. I am curious, of course, to hear what you thought about these theories, and what are you kind of feeling about, you know, Terra Firma Part 1, and what are you most excited to see kind of resolved or kind of figured out during the second part of Terra Firma, and what are your theories regarding Georgiou? What's going on with her? I'm curious to hear your guys' and gals' and NPALs' thoughts on that. Get your stuff up down below. If you enjoyed this video, please throw a like and a subscribe while you're down there leaving your comment, and we'll go ahead and get the conversation started. Live long and prosper, my trickies!